Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Pamela, and you are watching Pam Entertainment TV, where we review movies, television series, and incidents in pop culture to see how those incidents may or may not affect our daily lives. So, as you see, I'm not coming on screen. I'm just not coming on screen. Because this question has been just flooding my timeline across all platforms. Well, not all, but most. I'll see three or four of these think pieces on 100 men versus one silverback gorilla and who would win within this silverback gorilla. And baby, I mean, I've seen podcast after podcast after podcast pontificating on this. We could just get this and do all of this and move here and we'll have this one up on the gorilla and all of this other stuff. And then I'm just listening because I listened to two of them, and then what strikes me, I'm always asking the questions. Why would 100 men fight a gorilla? Why would 100 men fight the gorilla? Why is this a think piece in the first place? Why is this a think piece in the first place? Why are we worried about whether or not that 100 men can fight one gorilla? And see, I think about this because I know it seems a little tongue in cheek, and everybody is he and talking about it. But sometimes my mind may wonder. There's always when these think pieces happen, I'm always thinking that this is some kind of simulation to see what we can get over on the populace, what they will accept. Because even if you do all these little think pieces of how many people or whatever, what do we know about gorillas? What do we know about gorillas? First of all, we know that gorillas are just not running through the thing attacking people because, 9 times out of 10, we don't live in their habitat. And if we're there and if we seem threatening, that's a whole nother thing. But why is it a think piece for 100 men and one gorilla? And where do we see men who arm up in like 100? There's 100 at a time. We only see that when people are going to war. Even if you look at gangs and uh, any of those other things, people at games or anything like that, it's never 100v1. And the only time that you see regiments and things like that at 100 at a time, that's at wartime. Now, remember, from what I went back to see, like, when did this start? When did this whole concept start? So this started in 2020. It was some kind of Reddit post or subreddit post back in 2020. It resurfaced in 2022, and now we're hearing about it again. And so, what made it? There's a couple of things that I'm thinking about. Now, I haven't pulled all the information up for this, but I am thinking about what was going on in 2020, 2022, and 2025. what happens? What is happening? Because this again, I just looked it up. That's why there was a big pause. What what is going on that this social think piece or this social experiment or this psychological thing is going on where we're talking about 100 men versus one gorilla? And why does it come up? And again, it's coming up, and you have all these people with these little videos talking about, oh, you can maneuver here and you can do this. Listen to this. So I typed in, because again, I told you earlier that when I hear 100v1, the very first thing I think about is war conflict. So I typed in what war conflicts happened in the year 2020, 2022, and 2025. So in 2020, we still have the Afghani conflict, conflicts in Ethiopia, and Burkina Faso. Hmm. In 2022, the Russia Ukrainian war began, and then there's conflicts in Ethiopia, Yemen, and Sahel region persisted. 2025, the war in Ukraine continues, along with the Israeli Palestinian conflict, the Syrian civil war, and the Sudanese civil war. Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. So you all are out here trying to figure out whether or not 100 men can get a gorilla. They're trying to psych your minds up to get ready to go to war. And you can place who the infamous they is to anyone you want to. But it seems like there is a concerted effort to get you all riled up so that you will be okay about going to war. So that you can be okay about going to war. And let me just add another little thing on top of that. And I'm going to look it up to make sure. But in my opinion, when all of this happens, there's always some big economic downturn. And what I have known through history is that when there's an economic downturn, the way the United States of America bounces back and gets that money is that they get themselves involved in some kind of war conflict. Well, how does that work? Because you'll start getting all these machines ready. You have people built making guns, making bullets, making uniforms, shoes, food. All of these things are all these little different things that you need in order to be able to sustain a war. And then you get the men and the women that are in the military. Hell, you send them over there, you'll weed out at least a good portion of them may not be coming back. All right. What economic problems happened in 2020, 2025, and 2022 and 2025? 2020, we had the pandemic. We had a lot of supply chains disruptions. The GDP declined. The global GDP declined. Services consumptions dropped. And a lot of that had to do with, people weren't working, people weren't moving, people were going getting over health crisis. In 2022, that's when the high inflation rate happened, with costs going higher. Now, you went 2 years ago where there was a decrease in stuff. But interesting enough, 2 years ago, the supply chains were disrupted. In 2022, you had the high inflation, raising interest rates, labor shortages, lingering pandemic effects. And then in 2025, we got slowing economic growth, rising unemployment, tariffs, policies uncertainty, weakening consumer spending. And my apologies, because I did not share my screen so that you all can see what I'm looking at. So let me go here first. So again, I asked what war conflicts happened in the year 2020, 2022, and 2025. And this is what AI explained to me. In 2022, significant ongoing conflicts in the Afghanistan war. And I went over that with you a little earlier. And here, I just talked about the economic problems that were happening in those same years. And it broke down here. You had the COVID-19, supply chain disruptions. That's all in 2020. You have right here, high inflation, all of these little different things in 2022. And here we are in 2025 with these things. So these are all things that are going on. While we're having this conversation about 100 men to a gorilla. And just to talk about this, according to USA Today, Amaris Esinas is the person that wrote this. Who wins in a fight between 100 men and one gorilla? Experts weigh in on viral debate. You got YouTube personality Mr. Beast, as well as beauty and lifestyle influencer James Charles are among many voices their opinion on the debate. We've got this question because I wanted to get in what the experts were saying. Tara Stosinski, president and chief and the scientific officer of the Diane Fossey Gorilla Fund. Now, if you're not familiar with who Diane Fossey is, y'all go watch Gorillas in the Mist. That was a story about this woman's life, how she worked tirelessly to save the gorilla population across the world. But let's continue. I think in terms of kind of being able to prolong a battle that could eventually wear a gorilla out and our ability to really cooperate and coordinate, I think those two elements kind of work against a gorilla's favor. So basically what she's saying is if the gorilla, because here's the thing, you got 100 people, 100 men fighting this one gorilla. And let's say the first 10 get in there. There's going to be some unalivings because that gorilla is literally fighting for its life. Human nature, in my opinion, says that once a person sees something like that happen, your fight and flight will kick in. Now, if you see a way that you can flee, you're going to flee. So that tells me that if the first 10 or 15 people go in and at least 3 or 4 people are unalived, the people standing behind there's going to be at least 20 or 30 of y'all that are going to flee. Why? Because what sense does it make? Now, the rest of you all are probably going to go and get some coordinated thing to where you all are making this gorilla tired. And then once this gorilla gets tired, then y'all are going to pile up on them and beat this gorilla to death. But again, I go back. Why? Why is that important? Why is that? Because some of these podcasts that I've listened to, this is considered to be, you all are speaking about it as this is the height of manhood. Why is it manly for 100 men to attack a gorilla? And all in all, if you know anything about the gorillas, that what we know about the gorillas is that they're gentle giants. They're very social creatures, and they fight when their habitat or when their social setting is disturbed. I think this is some kind of psyop. I think this is happening. It seems like it's happening every 2 years since the COVID issue or the pandemic. And so here's my thoughts on that. This is a psyop. They're trying to get whether it be the government, whether it be some media outlet, whether it be corporations, whoever it is, trying to get you as an American populace to get you in the thought process of fighting, working out your manhood by fighting and maiming one individual. So let me back up. I believe that this is a whole psyop to get you all thinking about getting an army together to battle what? Either one individual, one country, etc., etc., etc. Getting you okay with that. Again, the things that have gotten the United States of America out of economic disaster has always been war. That is our playbook. That is what we have done. And so I think that this is what's going on. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Because there is a particular person, there is a particular country that people have their eyes on right now. Because if we look at this gorilla and we look at what I just said about gorillas, yeah, gorillas are scary, and gorillas are known to fight, and gorillas are usually social. They're usually social creatures that will fight to protect their territory. So if I'm using the gorilla as a metaphor, what person, what country is the United States of America trying to gun for? Y'all leave that down in the comments. Don't let these folks got y'all getting out here thinking you're thinking small, like this is some kind of really good debate. No, they're conditioning. We are being conditioned for something. What that something is, I don't know, and I'm not going to speak because, again, I believe words hold power, and I believe that certain words hold power, and I'm not going to speak on that, but I need for you all to think about what's going on. And the better question is not who would win between 100 men and one gorilla. The question is, why fight a gorilla? What are you fighting a gorilla for? And if you can answer that question, then you'll understand. All right, people. I hate to sound all cryptic and stuff, but again, I'm just seeing things going on social media, and I'm seeing things that are going on in the world. And I'm not trying to say that I built this correlation, but there are things that just make you think about things. And a lot of times when you think like this, people want to say, oh, well, you're being crazy, you're being dumb. No. And that's okay if you think like way. If you think I'm being crazy and if you think I'm being dumb. But I just need for you all to think about, why are we fighting? Why fight a gorilla? Why would 100 men fight one gorilla? We do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, please tell a friend, tell a kin, tell a coworker, tell that heifer that you can't stand that I'm over here making these videos. And as always, people, bye-bye.